Time to talk about the best cartoons of 2015. Now, like I said in the last video, 2015 was just kind of an okay year. Nothing really horrible, but nothing really spectacular either. And while there were some really good shows out, there wasn't anything new that was big. There weren't any game changers. There wasn't anything the likes of Gravity Falls or Steven Universe. So placing a lot of these entries was actually kind of difficult, which I guess is a good thing because it means the year was pretty consistent, I guess. So the rules for this list pretty much the same as the worst list, and I have to reiterate myself because apparently last year there was some confusion over this, so I'm going to make this as clear as possible. This is a list of new shows. These are new shows that premiered on US television in 2015. So if you're wondering why Steven Universe and Gravity Falls are not on the list, is because they did not premiere in 2015. I like both those shows. They're some of my favorites even. But they're not on the list because they didn't premiere in 2015. I'm not going to keep coming back to this video just to correct people. So if you see someone in the comments section having some trouble, kindly assist them. Okay? Okay. Alright, let's do this. Number 5, a show I neglected to talk about, and for good reason, because 1, it kind of slipped under my radar, and 2, I was a little reluctant to even watch it, but I'm kind of glad I did. Supernoobs. So every year Cartoon Network likes to get a couple of shows from Canada to air on American television, you know, to fill in the gaps between Teen Titans Go marathons. And unfortunately a lot of them are forgettable at best. So that's why I didn't really want to watch Supernoobs, but I did, and honestly, it's kind of funny. The show's about these 2 aliens that show up on Earth and run into these 4 kids and give them superpowers so they can fend off an evil alien virus that's infecting everyone on Earth. It's also really funny that the aliens mistook the kids for actual, like, military people, because that's who they were originally looking for. But they were playing, like, paintball at the time, and they were wearing the fatigue, so they were like, okay, here's your powers. And I also like how naturally the kids took to the powers, because they got them, and of course they sucked. Like, really, really badly they sucked. In fact, when the virus turned something into a monster, they didn't even use their powers at first. They just straight up went up and tried to start hitting it, and of course it didn't work. If the kids lose the device that gives them their powers, they'll die. And that is surprisingly dark for a kid's show, especially one that looks like this. By far the best part of the show are the 2 aliens that give them the powers, because they hang out and try to help them occasionally, and they are hilarious. Like, the show could just be about the 2 of them, and I'd love it every bit as much. One of them is clearly doing a Schwarzenegger impression too, and it's just, every time he speaks, it's just so funny. I also like how they try and help the kids learn their powers. Like, when they're in trouble, they try not to step in so they can learn from their mistakes, and I thought that was actually kind of smart. You know, as much as I like a good show, I also like being surprised as well, and I was actually surprised at how much I enjoyed Supernoobs, especially since it came from the creators of Johnny Test. Boy, that was a shock. But the show is surprisingly alright. Let's just hope it doesn't overstay its welcome. Number 4, Long Live the Royals! Unfortunately, I don't really have much to say about this show because it was a mini-series and there were only 4 episodes of it. I really wish I had more to say about this one, but I pretty much got all my thoughts out in my Rob Watches video, so I'll let you go check that out when you get a chance. The only thing I'll say, and this is me repeating myself, is that I really hope that this show has a future, because there's so much potential there. It did have the benefit of being a mini-series, which means they had less restrictions, but if they picked up the show for what it is, I think it would fit right in with the rest of their programming. Here's hoping the Royals do in fact live long. So number 2 and number 3. I'll be honest, placing these 2 was actually kind of hard. I kept going back and forth, and, you know, I kept changing my mind over and over, and, well, I finally came to a conclusion, and I don't know if you'll agree with me on this one, but if you don't, just know that it was close. It was very close. Number 3, Star versus the Forces of Evil. A show I really didn't get into at first, but after watching season 1, I'm glad I did. I started to really like a lot of the characters in this one. I like Star and Marco. I like how well they work together. And towards the end of the season, there were some really good episodes. This show could have very easily been shrugged off as just another goofy fish out of water story, but episodes like Munipendence Day and the stuff with Toffee were really where the show shined. And of course, there was the season finale, and wow, I won't spoil anything, but wow. Its only real shortcomings was that it took a while to get to that point, which is unfortunate, especially considering how short season 1 was. But season 2 is confirmed for later this year, so I have no doubt it's going to get even better. Number 2, Pen Zero, Part-Time Hero. This show is so underappreciated. The idea of the show is pretty simple. I mean, it's 3 kids that go to other dimensions and take over for heroes that fail. And you'd think that that idea would get tired really quick, but they found really good ways to mix it up a lot. Like, at first it was kind of like that, you know, they'd step in for a hero and then save the day, etc. But then they found different ways to go about things. Like, there were times where they had to fight another enemy and not usually the part-time villains. Sometimes they had to work together with the part-time villains. Sometimes there was some weird solution to the problem. Sometimes we didn't even go into the world. Sometimes we were following something that happened in their world. And the places they go to, so much thought went into a lot of things. And they would take ideas that didn't feel like they would work together, and they made it work. They went to a world where everyone was a cereal mascot, and they had a parody of Silence of the Lambs, and it worked. There was an episode where they were cavemen, and the cavemen had a spy network. And that's such a strange thing, and it worked. There was an episode where they went to a cowboy world, and everybody was riding dinosaurs, and it worked. There was an episode where they go to a world where everyone is balls, just bouncy balls, sports balls, all over the place. And it worked. Although I'm pretty sure that episode was just an excuse to say balls as many times as possible on a Disney cartoon. And of course, I love the characters in this show. They're all funny, they're all great. Alfred Molina as Ripon is really cool too. And he's paired up with Larry, who's voiced by Larry Wilmore. Whoever thought that would work? A team-up of Alfred Molina and Larry Wilmore. But it works. Let's be honest, Larry really is the best part of this entire show. Everything he says, watching Ripon be frustrated with him is just hilarious. And aside from the episodes where they had to go and save the day, there were still some really good episodes too. Like halfway through the season, there's an episode where Penn screws up really badly and actually endangers one of the worlds he goes to. And then he ends up having to redeem himself and trying to fix it somehow. And the season finale was really good too. The weird thing is, I don't think it's better than the season finale of Star versus the Forces of Evil, but it was still really good too. It's one of those season finales where everything sort of comes together and they have to, you know, stop an imminent threat, and it was really cool to watch. I absolutely love it when a show takes a concept and just runs with it as far as it possibly can go. And this show is a great example of that. If you haven't watched it yet, give it a shot. You might be impressed by its creativity. Which brings us to number 1. Like I said, placing a lot of these was kind of difficult, and picking number 1 was very hard, but I kept coming back to this one, and I did my best to try and rationalize how this can't be number 1, and I just couldn't do it. Every time I would try to find something wrong with it, I'd find like 5 more things that I really like about it. If you've been following along, you could probably already guess what it is. I'm just as shocked as you are. The best show of 2015, Harvey BEES. Yeah, a Nickelodeon show. Aside from being absolutely adorable, this is actually a really good kids show. Like, it started out pretty standard and, you know, not too special, but as it went on, it seemed to keep getting smarter. There was an episode about intolerance, and it taught that just because someone's different from you doesn't mean you have to be afraid of them. There was an episode where a bratty, spoiled kid had to take pity on someone who was less fortunate than they were. There was an episode about not being worried about things you have no control over. These are really good things for kids to learn. On top of that, this show has great presentation. Everything from the artwork, the character design, the lovable, likable characters, the music, the ambiance, even the theme song. Just if you've not seen this show, at least check out the intro. That pretty much sets the tone for the entire series. It's not a perfect show. It has some flaws. I mean, it's a Nickelodeon show, so there's a lot of the standard Nickelodeon humor in it. But, man, is it overshadowed by everything else about it. I don't even know what else to say. I'm kind of in shock that I'm saying all these things about a Nickelodeon show, and you know what? I've been very hard on Nickelodeon over the years. They have made a few good things, Avatar, Ninja Turtles, but Harvey BEES, I'm impressed. I'm very impressed, and let me just say, Nickelodeon, I'm proud of you. Just please don't screw this up. Well, those were the best shows of 2015. Let me know in the comments what your favorite show from 2015 is, and here's hoping 2016 will be just as good. My name is Rob, and have a wonderful day. So here's hoping the Loyals. Long live the Loyals.